the year of scarce publications that I run, we get lots and lots of collection books as well as issue releases, so I'm just going to share them with you because I've got so many. Right before I left to go on a trip to Antarctica, that's where I spent my Thanksgiving, we released a date book, a weekly planner, where selected poems from the issues of the magazines that I run, CC&D and Down in the Dirt, are chosen to fit in with every single week of the year. And I think Tom's in the first week of November because he's looking at me with a photo and I don't know what he's doing with it. But it's up with poems on both pages, and so yay, that was done in the beginning of November. Then, right before the first, I released the annual collection books from Scarce Publications, which chooses poetry as well as prose, and because I had a lot of fetch fiction, I did two. One was a poetry and prose called On a Rainy Day. On a Rainy Day, to show to everyone, around appropriately. And I have to say, yeah, that was when I was taking pictures from the total eclipse. That was one of the shots before anything was happening. I thought that was kind of cool like that. So, but On a Rainy Day is got longer pieces of prose and poems, short as well as long, that's in it. And because with Down in the Dirt, I got so many pieces of flash fiction, which are just like 2 pages in the book. I said I'm going to have a poetry and flash fiction book as well, and that's called Negative Space. I think people look at me funny when I decide I want to photograph this rock on the side of the road, and that's where I get covers. That's where things like this, the back of a car, that's where these ideas come from. But then the first came along, and the issues of both literary magazines came out. CC&D magazine has one that's called Flawed Cadaver. And by the way, these titles are based on accepted writing that's within it. On a Rainy Day is a piece that's in there. Negative Space is a piece that's in there. Flawed Cadaver is a poem that is in there. And I thought it would just be appropriate to have this shot from the Glob Gazette. It's on the cover with the Flawed Cadaver. Have them checking it out. The other magazine I run is Down in the Dirt, and for the December issue, it was The Lighthouse. It's just The Lighthouse in Kenosha, Wisconsin, no big deal. But that one's out as well. If anybody is interested in submitting writing to magazines, you can just let me know. If my name, jenna@gmail.com, and I can forward it to the magazines, because that's how I hear things. Or if I hear something here, like Tom reads something, I happen to like it. Next week, because I said I can't be releasing everything at once, I'm going to have issue collection books from both of the magazines, and this one from CC&D, which will be out next week. It's not out yet. It's The Language of Untamed Spirit, and that was light in India or something. I just thought it was kind of cool. And this is something I'll get to read in the first week of January at Tom's Half-Price Books reading, something reading from this guy. Yay, he's not even out yet. And the one from Down in the Dirt, I get to say, yay, I've got a good shot of the eclipse. It's called The Light in the Sky. And this is just of like 4 issues of the magazine. That's just bound together like this. So anybody who's in those issues. So yeah, you'd be published like mad if you got published through me, I guess, because you'd be in collection books and potentially in the big year books and blah, 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 and I'm done talking about books. Well, at least for now, I guess. I didn't hear about a theme because I wasn't here last month. So I said I'm going to read something that I wrote in Antarctica for the first piece for you. And that one I've chosen for you is Underwater and Swimming. Swimming with my best friend in a pool in the summertime, diving down in the deep end, flipping and springing up to the sky, could never compare to seeing genteel penguins, stocky birds, actually swimming like porpoises underwater and then springing so high from the water where we sat at the shoreline after watching the penguins dive in to the Southern Ocean's frigid salt water, grouped together and then spring away. Like watching birds in flight, in formation. We'd watch 6 or 8 of these birds all spring up in the water together, just a porpoise together in sync. I think of my friend now, how we swam near the Great Lakes south of the North Pole. And now, at the other side of the world, I see it's a part of a beautiful whole. And I thought I would share with you 2 poems that I have never read for you before from one of my new book releases this year. If you haven't heard this before, This Is Not a Word. But if you can be attracted to somebody's pheromones, maybe you can be attracted by words or my memes, pheromemes. This is a collection of things that I have read in features while living in Texas. And I'm just going to post it that I've never read for you guys before from 2 different shows. This first one is called Our Futures. When the world lays in rubble and everything's gone, get out the bulldozers and haul out the trash. Because I'm here to tell you that we're starting anew. So stop asking for things and start working for things. It's time to make choices, and it's time to lay claim to everything we've been blindly giving away. Because you know it's not time to take it all back. Take it in your own hands, people. Mold your own tools. If you're scared of someone taking charge in this country, take charge of yourself. And I'll take charge of me. Because only when we define our role in the future will we see the future we want and the future we need. We can let others define our futures for us, or we can spread the word, and we can make the difference. I'm going to end with this one that is called Mapping Our Way to True Love. I've always taken charge and led the way, but even on my own, I accomplished more than anyone. I was invincible. I was doing so well, I quit my job as an art director in the 2nd largest city in the States, kept paying for my Chicago apartment, and traveled around the country by car, until I was stopped at a light, and one car slammed into me, and then another. Then I fought for my life. And this sounds sad, and I'm telling you, it was. But this is all a part of my invincible life. Because doctors, even on other floors at the hospital, read my records and called me Miracle Girl because of my miraculous recovery. But this was the first time in my invincible life when I felt alone, because the only thing missing from my invincible life was true love. You know the kind, because in this hectic modern world, it's not so impossible to find your philosophical equal. So now, because I'm a journalist, forced to take the train because my car was totaled, I'd ask passengers questions. Tell me something about yourself. Because my life was almost taken away from me, I wanted to learn anything I could about anybody else. Let me at least vicariously live. Tell me something about yourself. And one man answered in the cold of January while I kept myself covered in a coat, hat, scarf, and gloves. He asked me what book I was currently reading. I said a philosopher's name. He said he knew their writing, and that he'd read their novels, and he named their nonfiction books, and he even said that he had read the lexicon of their philosophy. I stopped him. You're telling me you read a dictionary? He said yes, and the information actually was quite handy for him. So on our first date, we talked philosophy more than half of the night when not asking each other vague, tell me about yourself questions. And though we had only known each other for like 2 weeks, when Valentine's Day came, he decided to give me an expansive map of the United States because I had just traveled it. He carried a large tube to his work on Valentine's Day. A coworker saw it, inquired. When he said he was giving his girl a map for Valentine's Day, the coworker laughed. She'll hate that. Women want chocolate and flowers, he said. But when I got the map, I asked if it was okay if I kept it curled up until we had a home for it. When I look up in my office, I see that map on the wall. And when I walk out of my office, I see a wall displaying his guitars. He likes that I wanted to display his music. And he likes that I'm a creative person with an engineering side, because he's an engineering person with a creative side. But that shouldn't surprise him. And it shouldn't surprise me that we were engaged 4 times longer than we dated. Yes, our dating was accelerated because not many people talk philosophy on their first date, and not many people realize, even before they start dating, that they can't be without the other. because now that we found each other, we want to lock hands and scour those maps because we want to see every part of the world together. Because when you get to this point, celebrating alone isn't celebrating, and living alone isn't living when you could be with your one true love. And that map is on the office, right there. And I've got another map behind me because I don't see that one. I'm like, I can look at the map right there. Yeah, it sounds like the cheesiest thing, doesn't it? Oh yeah, get her chocolate and flowers.
No, that's pretty cheesy, yeah.
Well, if we knew each other 2 weeks, right?
Yeah.
So you're thinking you wouldn't, like, you know, leave each other or whatever.